There is a question that has been sitting in the back of my mind for a long time, and once you hear it, you will not be able to unhear it either. Two people walk every single day, same number of steps, same shoes, same weather, same 40 minutes of effort, and yet one of them ages slowly, joints strong, balance sharp, heart steady, and the other one ages fast, knees aching, breath short, legs weaker every year, even though they are doing the exact same amount of walking. Same activity, completely different aging speed. For years I assumed walking was walking, flat ground or hill, it did not matter. Steps were steps. But the research says something very different, something almost nobody explains clearly, and once you understand it, you will never choose your walking route the same way again. You will never look at a hill the same way again, and tonight you might actually change which direction you walk in. Before I get into the difference, and I promise I will show you exactly what the science says, I want to ask you a small favor. It costs nothing, and it helps this channel keep making videos like this one. If you have not already, subscribe to Smart Psychology. It genuinely helps more than you would think. And now, let us get into the real question. Why does a slope in the ground change how fast your body ages? Let us start with flat ground, because that is where almost everyone lives their entire walking life. The sidewalk, the treadmill set at zero incline, the mall, the flat park loop. On flat ground, your body has already solved the problem. Your nervous system has walked flat ground so many times across your lifetime that it has automated the whole thing. Your calves push you forward a little, your quads absorb a little shock, your hip flexors swing your leg through, and your brain barely has to think about it at all, which is exactly why you can walk on flat ground while scrolling your phone, talking on a call, thinking about dinner. Your body does not need your attention because flat ground asks almost nothing new of it. And here is the part that matters for aging. Muscle only grows, joints only strengthen, bone only densifies, and balance only sharpens when the body is asked to do something it has not fully mastered, something slightly uncomfortable, something that creates what researchers call mechanical stress. Flat ground, walked at a comfortable pace, creates very little of that stress. It is a maintenance activity. It keeps what you already have. It does not build anything new. Which is why so many people can walk 3 miles a day for 20 years and still lose muscle mass the entire time, still lose bone density the entire time, still get weaker in the exact muscles that keep them upright and independent in old age. Now let us go to the hill. The moment the ground tilts upward, even a gentle incline, something changes completely in your body, and it changes in ways that flat ground simply cannot replicate no matter how far or how fast you walk it. Walking uphill forces your hip extensors, your glutes, the largest and most powerful muscle group in your entire body, to fire far harder with every single step, because now gravity is pulling you backward down the slope, and your glutes have to fight against that pull, to push you forward and upward at the same time. Studies using force plates and electromyography, which measures muscle activation directly from the muscle fiber, have shown that a moderate incline of just 5 to 10% can increase glute activation by well over 50% compared to flat walking, and increase activation in the muscles along the back of your leg, your hamstrings and calves, by a similar amount. This is not a small difference. This is the difference between a muscle that is coasting and a muscle that is actually working, actually adapting, actually getting the signal to grow stronger instead of the signal to stay exactly as it is. There is also something happening with your heart and lungs on an incline that flat walking almost never produces unless you walk extremely fast. Uphill walking raises your heart rate and your oxygen demand dramatically, often turning what feels like a casual walk into what your cardiovascular system experiences as genuine moderate intensity exercise, the kind that actually improves what researchers call VO2 max, which is essentially a measurement of how efficiently your heart, lungs, and muscles work together to deliver oxygen to your cells. VO2 max happens to be one of the single strongest predictors of biological aging that scientists have ever found, stronger in some large population studies than cholesterol, stronger than blood pressure, stronger even than body weight. People with a higher VO2 max relative to their age simply live longer and stay independent longer. And uphill walking is one of the most accessible, joint-friendly ways to raise it, because you never need to run. You never need to pound your joints on pavement. You just need a slope. So now we arrive at the real answer to the question in the title, which ground ages you slower. Flat ground maintains you, it is gentle, it is safe, It burns calories, it helps your mood, and none of that should be dismissed. Your heart still benefits, your circulation still benefits, your mental clarity still benefits. But flat ground alone does not build the muscle, the bone density, or the cardiovascular capacity that actually slows the aging process at the level scientists can measure in a laboratory. Uphill walking does all three at once: more muscle recruitment, more bone loading which triggers your body to lay down new bone tissue, and more cardiovascular demand which raises your VO2 max over time. If you only ever walk flat ground, you are essentially keeping the lights on in a house that is slowly losing its foundation, and if you add hills, even small ones, even a few times a week, you are doing the equivalent of quietly reinforcing that foundation every single time you climb. Let me tell you about someone I will call Denise, because her story shows this better than any statistic can. Denise was 57, and she had walked the same flat 2-mile loop around her neighborhood almost every morning for nearly a decade, rain or shine. Proud of her consistency, and rightfully so. Most people cannot manage that kind of discipline. But somewhere around year 8, she noticed her thighs burning going up the 4 steps to her front porch, something that never used to register at all. She noticed stairs at the mall left her a little more winded than she remembered. She noticed she was gripping the railing now on the way down, not the way up, the way down, which is actually a telling sign, because going down requires the muscles to control your descent, and when those muscles are weak, going down feels scarier than going up. Denise assumed this was simply what 57 felt like, and she almost accepted it, the way so many people quietly accept a slow decline as if it were mandatory instead of optional. A friend suggested she try a different route, one with a hill she had always avoided because it looked steep and unpleasant. The first time she walked it, she had to stop twice. Her thighs burned in a way flat walking had never once produced in 10 years. Her heart pounded harder than she expected from something that was still technically just walking. She almost turned around and went back to her flat loop that day. And honestly, most people do turn around. Most people quit right there and decide the hill is not for them. But Denise kept going back, twice a week at first, then 3 times. And by week 6, the hill that used to stop her breath now felt merely challenging instead of punishing. By month 3, she noticed the porch steps no longer burned. By month 6, she was walking upstairs at the mall without thinking about it at all, the exact opposite of where she started. Her doctor, during a routine visit, actually commented on her improved balance during a simple standing test, something Denise had not even mentioned to her. The doctor noticed it independently. Denise still does her flat loop sometimes. She loves the quiet of it. But the hill is now her main event, and she describes it as the difference between maintaining a body and actually rebuilding one. A difference she says she can feel in her legs every single morning now. There is a piece of this story that rarely gets mentioned, and it might be the most important piece for anyone over 40, and that is bone density. Bone, unlike most tissues in the body, responds almost entirely to mechanical loading, meaning bone only strengthens when it is asked to bear real force, and flat, comfortable walking simply does not generate enough of that force to meaningfully slow the natural bone loss that begins for most adults sometime in their 30s and accelerates significantly after menopause for women and more gradually for men. Uphill walking changes this equation, because the added force through your hips and femurs while climbing a grade creates exactly the kind of loading signal that tells your skeleton to lay down new bone tissue rather than simply maintain what it already has. Researchers studying hip fracture risk, one of the most dangerous outcomes of aging, because a broken hip after 70 carries a strikingly high 1-year mortality rate in many studies, have consistently found that stronger hip and thigh muscles combined with denser bone in that same region dramatically lower the odds of a fall ever turning into a fracture in the first place. So when you climb a hill, you are not only working muscle you can see and feel, you are quietly reinforcing bone deep inside your body that you will never see, bone that may be the difference, decades from now, between a stumble that means nothing and a stumble that changes your entire life. I want to pause here for a second, because I know some of you are already thinking about your own knees, your own joints, wondering if a hill is even safe for you, and that is a completely fair concern. So let me address it honestly. Walking uphill is generally very gentle on the knees, in fact often gentler than flat ground walked at a fast pace, because the incline shifts more of the workload to your hips and glutes and away from direct knee joint compression. It is actually downhill walking, not uphill, where the knees take on more stress, because the quadriceps have to work eccentrically to control your descent and slow your body against gravity. So if you have sensitive knees, a smart approach many people use is walking up the hill for the workout, and then taking a longer, gentler path back down, or even using a treadmill where you can set the incline going up and simply step off rather than walking back down a steep slope. If you have any existing joint condition, a recent surgery, or significant arthritis, talk to your doctor before adding hills. That is simply responsible, but for the vast majority of adults with normal aches and normal stiffness, an incline is one of the safest ways to build real strength without any equipment at all. And many people find their knees actually feel more stable within just a few weeks, simply because the surrounding muscles are finally sharing the workload the joint used to carry on its own. Let us get practical, because understanding the science without a plan is just trivia, and I do not want to leave you with trivia. If you do not have a natural hill nearby, a treadmill works perfectly, and honestly may even be better because you control the exact grade. Start at a 2 to 3% incline for your first week or two, at a pace you can comfortably hold a conversation at, for 15 to 20 minutes. That might sound almost too easy, and it should feel easy at that grade. The goal right now is simply teaching your body the new pattern. Your hips learning to fire harder, your calves learning to push differently than they do on flat ground. After the first 2 weeks, increase to 5% incline, and notice how differently your legs feel by the end of the walk compared to flat ground. That burn you feel in your glutes and hamstrings is the sound of dormant muscle fibers waking back up. By week 4 or 5, many people are comfortably walking at 8 to 10% incline for their full session, and at that point you are getting a workout that rivals many gym leg exercises, without a single piece of equipment, without a single rep counted, just steady, sustained uphill movement. Frequency matters here just like it does with any strength stimulus. 3 to 4 sessions a week is the sweet spot for most adults, with at least one rest day of flat walking or complete rest between the harder incline sessions, because just like with any resistance exercise, your muscles adapt and strengthen during recovery, not during the walk itself. If you only have access to flat ground and no hills or treadmill at all, do not despair. You can create a version of this stimulus by adding a weighted backpack, sometimes called rucking, which increases the mechanical demand on flat ground in a similar, though not identical, way to an incline. 10 to 20 pounds in a well-fitted backpack can meaningfully raise the intensity of an otherwise flat walk. I want to bring in one more piece of the science here, because I think it explains why this difference in aging speed is so much larger than most people expect. When a muscle contracts under real load, the kind uphill walking demands, it releases a family of signaling molecules called myokines directly into your bloodstream. These myokines travel well beyond your legs. They reach your brain, your pancreas, your immune system, your cardiovascular system, and they have been linked in research to reduced inflammation throughout the body, improved insulin sensitivity, and even protective effects on brain tissue that may slow age-related cognitive decline. Flat, low-intensity walking produces some of this myokine release, but only a modest amount, because the demand on the muscle is simply not high enough to trigger a strong signal. Uphill walking, because it recruits so much more muscle fiber and demands so much more force per step, produces a substantially larger release of these molecules, which means the benefit of a hill walk is not confined to your legs at all. It is systemic. It reaches nearly every organ system involved in how quickly or slowly your body ages. This actually connects to a favor I want to ask you, right in the middle of all this, because if this kind of explanation is useful to you, the kind that goes past the surface level advice and actually shows you the mechanism underneath, that is exactly what smart psychology is built around. So if you have not hit subscribe yet, now is a good moment. And if you know someone whose knees or energy you worry about, someone who only ever walks flat ground, send them this video. It might change the next 10 years of how their body ages. Let me address the mindset piece too, because the science only matters if you actually apply it. There is a strange cultural habit of treating a hill as an obstacle, something to avoid on a walk, something that ruins an otherwise pleasant stroll. I would ask you to flip that completely. The hill is not the inconvenience in your walk. The hill is the entire point of the walk. Everything else